did the Johnson home have 6 o'clock every night? We had dinner, and at 6:30 you will sit around the table because we are going to make our way through a chapter of the Bible, and we're going to study the MacArthur study notes.
We didn't do that. If I had to go back and do parenting over again, I think I'd try a little harder to have some sort of family devotions like that. But we tried on several occasions different methods and all that, and it always just seemed superficial and counterproductive because it irritated everybody. As I read the scripture, the instructions for parents are Deuteronomy 6. You talk of these things when you're in your house, when you're driving on the road, when you walk on the way, it says in scripture, no matter what you're doing, in other words, you talk about these things with your children. And so we tried to do that so that, like, in the car on the way to the grocery store, if there was some opportunity to make conversation that, well, it didn't matter what we were talking about. Anything we were talking about, we would always try to bring the Lord or spiritual principles into it. They observe something happening on the street, and you try to, or actually you want to be in a position where the natural thing to do
it's part of the
is,
fabric of your family.
It is. You have a biblical worldview, then everything you see, you're seeing through the lens of Scripture, and you want to talk about it that way with your kids.
And that's what happened in the Johnson home. So you would maybe encourage some sort of, if you will, family altar, but perhaps even more important, that it is so ingrained in everybody's DNA that just is the conversation.
That's how we talk around the house. Yeah. So, and I would say it is more important. I am all for family devotions, and I really respect families that are disciplined in that way, where they gather around the table and open the Bible and do it. Our family was too scattered to ever make that work. But like I said, if I had it to go back and do over again, I would try harder, because I think that's important. But more important yet is that Deuteronomy 6 principle, that these are things you talk about all the time. You don't, if you're relegating all the spiritual conversation in your family to 15 minutes after supper, that's a bad thing, not a good thing.
Now, don't look at this. I'm going to write down, speaking of Bible verses, I'm going to write down, don't look. I'm going to write down the first Bible verse that you had your children memorize, and we're going to see if I'm right. All right? What was the first Bible verse you had your kids memorize? Come on, you know it.
I don't. Do you remember, Darlene?
All right, by a show of hands, how many of us, for the first Bible verse we had our children memorize, Ephesians chapter 6, children, obey your parents as in the Lord.
Yeah, no, I can tell you definitively it wasn't that. It wasn't that. And I'll tell you why. I didn't want to keep throwing their biblical duty in their face.
Because there's Ephesians 6:4.
That's right. And I didn't want that quoted back at me, and I knew that would eventually come, So
especially that do not annoy your kids.
Yeah. No, I don't remember the first verse they memorized. All of them they grew up in Awana memorizing all kinds of scriptures. So I don't remember. Might have even been Jesus wept, just because that's so easy.
Right.
But, no, I didn't. I wouldn't have. This is one of the things I wouldn't have done as a parent, because I don't want to make spiritual things odious to my children. So I wasn't constantly throwing all the stuff in their face that seemed like a correction or a rebuke. I wanted the instruction and...
Look, again, just to stress this, it's not about not doing devotions with your kids, but what I'm hearing from, of all people, Phil Johnson, because if I can imagine Phil Johnson doing family devotion times, all right, kids, gather around now, sit, John, sit right there. If you recall, we're on point 3, subpoint B in our text. But that wasn't it. It was
That's
more
right.
an organic part of the Johnson family.
It could have happened that way, actually, because I do like that sort of orderly, structured approach to study. I mean, you listen to me preach, there's always a 3-point outline, right? It's predictable. One of the guys in my flock said, I know how you put your sermons together. He said, it's 3 points, alliterated or rhymed, 2 Spurgeon quotes.
That's it.
And a reference to John MacArthur. and I thought that was funny and cute and everything, but I started to pay attention after that, and I thought, I don't consciously do that, but it pretty much comes out that way.
And Phil, just as a demonstration of our love for you, for the love that you've had for your family, we all here together promise we will not tell Dr. MacArthur you only quote him once and Spurgeon twice.